Hey guys, it's Barbara and welcome back to my channel. Today let's make some beautiful high-end Christmas snowflake DIYs. We're going to go ahead and get started on our first project, which is this gorgeous candle. Using one of Dollar Tree's tall plain white candles, I'm going to use my hairdryer to loosen that glue under that sticker so that it will make it easier to remove. And then to remove that excess sticky glue, I'm just using some rubbing alcohol and it will wipe it away nice and clean. And then I'll take a paper towel to make sure everything is nice and dry and prepped and ready for paint. I am using the color Crimson, which is a chalk paint made by Waverly, and it is a gorgeous red color. I'm going to apply 2 coats on the outside of this entire candle. And it is just a beautiful deep red color. Now to protect that chalk paint on this glass, I'm going to use some gloss Mod Podge. It's going to give it a little bit of a sheen, but it's going to protect that paint from chipping off. Now I'm going to allow that to dry, and I'm taking some of this gorgeous snowflake ribbon from Dollar Tree, and I want to apply that just under the rim, right there at the top, but not close to the very edge because I don't want that near the flame in the candle. And I'm using Mod Podge to apply this so that it wouldn't have any of that. If I put hot glue under there, you'll be able to see like the bumps underneath the ribbon, and I want it to be nice and flat. So I'm going to secure that down with the Mod Podge, and when I get to the end, I'll add a little bit more so that I can seal that closed. I also created a very simple bow using that same ribbon, and I'm going to attach that on top of the ribbon at the top using a little bit of hot glue. Now to decorate this candle, I'm going to use some of these gorgeous snowflake stickers from Dollar Tree. Now I did put a couple of those tumbling tower pieces under my candle to keep it from rolling around, but I'm just going to apply these around this entire candle, and it really makes those white snowflakes pop, and it is so pretty. You could give these as gifts, or this would complement any of your Christmas decor. It's just absolutely gorgeous. You guys let me know what you think of this snowflake candle. Now for project number 2, I am starting off by using some of these small wood snowflakes from Hobby Lobby. I did purchase these on sale. I believe they were $4 or $5, and you get like 50 something or another in a pack. So I am placing some painter's tape with the sticky side up just to make it easier for me to be able to paint these small snowflakes. And I started off with 7, but I do end up adding an extra one later on. I'm going to paint these with Waverly white chalk paint. Of course, you can add as many snowflakes to your project as you want to. I did paint the outside edging, and I do recommend that you paint both sides. I did not originally paint both sides, but I do go back and paint the opposite side of the snowflakes as well. I'm using one of Dollar Tree's picture frames, and I removed that felt sticker from the backing, and then I'm going to give this 2 coats of my white chalk paint on the entire outside of this frame. For the backing of the frame, I'm going to cover that using some poster board. So I'm just going to trace that out and cut it down. And then I'm going to attach my poster board, and this is going to give us a nice smooth base on the backing. And I'm attaching that using just a regular glue stick, really making sure I get those outside edges and really good coverage on there. I'm going to place that poster board with the shiny side onto the backing so the matte side is facing me, and seal everything down. And then I'm going to give this 2 coats of that same beautiful crimson chalk paint made by Waverly, and I'm making sure that I go in one direction so all my brush strokes are going in the same direction, and it's going to give you that same beautiful deep red color after that second coat. I'm using some cotton twine from Dollar Tree, and I'm going to cut that down and then separate the strings so it's about 5 or 6 strings intertwined into that one little cotton string. And then I'm going to attach my snowflakes to the end of the string. So I'm just lining it up to see where I want to place them. And I'm putting a dot of hot glue on the back of that snowflake and then adding that little piece of string on there. And then I'm going to line those up after I get each one of those glued onto a string. Then I could play with the placement and decide exactly where I want to put them. Now, originally, I was going to hot glue them to the back, but I felt like that just wasn't going to hold it in place because they kind of dangle around a little bit. So I do end up adding a piece of painter's tape to the back just to hold everything nice and tight. And then you can place as many snowflakes and lay out the design however you want. And then I'm going to make sure I attach each one of those on the back with some painter's tape and then cut that excess string off. And then I can add the backing back into the picture frame, and it's simply gorgeous. Now, I did end up adding one more snowflake to that center one because I felt like it just needed a little something else. But like I said, you can put as many snowflakes on here as you want to. And this is where I said you do need to paint both sides. So I did end up having to go back in and paint the back side of each of those snowflakes. And like I said, I added that extra snowflake, and I think this turned out so beautiful. If you have a Cricut, you could also put Let It Snow at the bottom. But I love how this sign turned out, and I hope you guys like it too. For project number 3, we are starting off with some of these wood snowflake ornaments from Dollar Tree. We will be using 7 of them. 4 of them I'm going to fill in with some spackling the hole at the top of the ornament, and I found that it's just easier to fill them in from both sides at the same time. That way it doesn't squeeze out the other side. We're going to set those to the side, let that spackling dry up, and the other 3 we're going to cut those outside edges of each of the snowflakes off. Now I'm using my handheld miter shears. If you are interested in these, I have them listed in my Amazon store in my description box. We're just going to cut those angles off of each of the outside of these 3 snowflakes, and it's just going to create a smaller snowflake. Now, once I have all 3 of those cut down, I will take some sandpaper and go over any of the edging if it's rough. And I'm also going to go over those holes that we filled in with the spackling on the 4 larger ones. I'm going to paint all 7 of these with my Waverly White chalk paint. And I did make sure that I painted the front, the back, and all of those grooves in between. So you want to have nice full coverage on that. We are also going to use 11 of the wood cubes from Dollar Tree, and I'm going to glue 4 of them together to make one block. Now, I did set them up to make sure they were the same height, especially for the 4 that we're gluing together, because not all of these little blocks are exactly the same. So I'm hot gluing those together, and then I'm going to give each of these a nice dusting of the white chalk paint. I didn't want full coverage on this because I did want some of that natural wood to peek through. I will also be using a styrofoam star that came in a package from Dollar Tree, and this was back at 4th of July. So I will use a white one, but I'm going to give it some of that white chalk paint so that all of the white matches. And I'm also using a barbecue skewer. I'm going to insert that into the star and then paint a little bit at the top of the barbecue skewer just so that everything has that nice dusting of white. Now, once everything has dried, I'm going to drill a hole in just one of the cubes, and I'm not drilling it all the way through, just deep enough so that I'll be able to put that barbecue skewer in there without it toppling over. So I'm going to glue one of the larger snowflakes directly in the center of the 4 cubes and let that set, and then I will glue one of the single cubes right in the center of that snowflake. And then I'll take another large snowflake to glue in the center of that cube, but I want those outside edges to go in between the ones on the bottom. So they're not going to be directly above each other, but they're going to go tilted so it makes it nice and full, and they're actually in between the ones on the bottom, if that makes sense. Then I'll add another single cube right in the center of that and continue to do that until I have the large snowflakes in place, each alternating in directions. Then I'll add these smaller snowflakes at the top of this to create our snowflake tree. And once I have all of those glued down, I'll glue that last cube with the hole at the top and then determine how long I want my star to extend from the top of the tree, and then I can cut that down and place that in the hole that we pre-drilled with some hot glue. And then I took my hair dryer to go over all of this to get any of those loose glue strands off, and now you have a really beautiful snowflake tree. I think this turned out super beautiful, and I hope you guys like this project as much as I enjoyed making it. Okay, for project number 4 and 5, we are using one of Dollar Tree's wood drawer insert pieces, and I'm going to give both of these a nice base coat of the Waverly White chalk paint. Now, the smaller one, I painted the entire outside, including the bottom part of it, and for the larger one, I am going to paint the entire outside, including the top rim and a little bit down inside that top rim. They will only need one coat. This is just going to be a base coat because I'm using some really beautiful napkins from Dollar General that I bought for $1. And I'm going to take those napkins out, and they only have one of the red sides that I want to use. So I'm going to peel that apart so it's only one layer of the napkin, and then I'm going to cut just that red square out because that's the section that I want to use for these cubes. So for each cube, you will need 4 napkins if you want to do it that way, or you can use the other part. But because I wanted all of mine to be red on the outside, I did go through and cut 4 of those. Now I'm taking some Mod Podge. I saw this trick on TikTok. I wish I remember who it was. I would certainly give them credit for it. But I wanted to try this out, so I'm putting a nice even coat of Mod Podge on one side at a time, making sure I get those edges. And let me just tell you that I did have a cup of water standing by just in case anything went awry. I didn't want to burn my house down. But I'm going to place my napkin right on top of that Mod Podge, cut the extra napkin off as close to the edge as I can. And while that Mod Podge is still wet, I'm going to light it on fire, and it's going to burn it straight up to the edge of the wood cube, right where the Mod Podge is. And it gives you a nice, crisp, clean line, and it's a game changer. You don't have to sand. It's pretty neat. I'm pretty excited about it. Like I said, I was a little scared at first because I wasn't sure, didn't want to set this napkin on fire and then everything starts burning. So I did have some water standing by. And I'm going to do each side at a time. And you want to, if you recreate this or if you use this method, you're definitely going to want to make sure you you burn that while that Mod Podge is still wet, because it's just going to burn it straight up to the edge and it's going to stop burning where that Mod Podge is. If you don't feel comfortable with that, of course, you can always sand it, let it dry, and then sand it down nice and smooth. But it did give me some nice crisp edges. And each time I did that, I did take my little mini handheld vacuum to get any little ashes up because I didn't want it to get on the other sides of my project. Of course, if you don't feel comfortable with that, by all means, don't do it that way, but I was pretty impressed by it. So after I get all 4 sides of of this small cube covered, I'm going to take a coat of Mod Podge and seal all of that napkin on all 4 sides just to make sure everything doesn't come up. Now I'm going to do the exact same thing on the larger cube, except I want the open part to be the top. So I'll just make sure that I line my napkins up that way. Now once everything is sealed and dried, I can use this larger cube to decorate. I'm going to put a piece of styrofoam in there and use one of these Dollar Tree Christmas picks. I'm going to cut each one of these stems off of the bundle, and then I can place those into the styrofoam. And then I'm going to take some green moss from Hobby Lobby that I already had in my craft room, and I'm going to cover up the bottom part of those stems just to cover up the styrofoam and give it a nice finished look. Now these would be some super cute gifts that you could give out or even put on your end table or your desk or your entryway, but they're very beautiful, and I love how this one turned out. And for the smaller cube, I decided to use that to put that cute little snowflake tree that we just made on top of, and I think these just turned out gorgeous. Let me know what you guys think. If this is your first time visiting my channel and you are enjoying today's video, I would love for you to click that subscribe button and the notification bell. Also, visit me on my other social media links. They're all in the description box. Okay, you guys, let's get started on project number 6. Using one of Dollar Tree's signs, this measures 8 inches by 8 inches square. I'm going to remove that top piece as best I can. You're not really going to see it in this project, but you do want to try to remove as much of it as you can. So I just used my Cricut spatula and kind of pulled that up and sanded it down, really making sure that I get most of the outside edging smooth because you may be able to see some of that. I'm going to give this one good coat of Waverly White chalk paint, including those outside edges. And then I'm just going to set that to the side, let it dry, and I'm using one of Dollar Tree's Christmas ornaments. I'm going to remove the hanger and all those goodies on the front. Flip that over and I'm going to fill in the hole at the top with some of my spackling. Let that dry and then I'll sand it down nice and smooth, including some of those outside edges because they were pretty rough and I wanted it to have nice crisp lines. I'm going to give this 2 coats of my Waverly White chalk paint on the back side of the snowflake, which will now be the front side, as well as the outside edging because you will be able to see that. I am also using one of these wood pieces from the puzzle piece at Dollar Tree, just the backing of it, and 4 of Dollar Tree wood cubes. I'm going to attach a cube in each corner using E6000 and hot glue, and I'm just trying to make sure that I get it somewhat to the outside edge because it has these divots where those puzzle pieces were, but you kind of want to make sure it has a good secure hold. Once I have all 4 of those in place, I'm going to take some Waverly Antique Wax and go over the entire top part, the outside edging, as well as the wood cubes with a coat of this wax, and then I kind of blend it in with just a dry paper towel. You can make it as dark or as light as you want. I also made sure that I got a little bit of the edging on the back side just because you may be able to see that. I'm going to take that same antique wax and go over the larger sign that we just previously painted white, and I wanted mine to be a little bit darker. If you do want to lighten it up, you could just take a paper towel and go over that and lighten up some of that antique wax. I also made sure that I went around the outside edging. Now I'm going to take, once everything has dried, that piece that has the wood cubes on the bottom, and I'm going to center that up right on top of our larger sign. So I'm just going to make sure that I measure it and everything's nice and centered, and I'm going to take some of this gorgeous ribbon from Dollar Tree, and I'm going to cut down 4 lengths. So 2 are going to be longer and 2 are going to be shorter so that everything matches up when we place it on our sign. I'm going to attach it using some Mod Podge, and I'm just going right there where those cubes are and applying a line of this Mod Podge so that I can place 2 of these smaller ribbon down on opposite ends. And once I have those 2 in place, I can go back in with the 2 larger ribbon, and that way they will meet and make a perfect square around it. Because, you know, if you have your 2 shorter ones on there, you're going to need the longer one so it extends to the ribbon on each side. And I'll put those and finish that up. And then once I get all of my ribbon in place, I will remove that top piece and I'm going to go around the wax on the outside and then a little bit on the inside of the ribbon and then on those outside edges to seal all that wax in. I'm going over this with some Mod Podge just to give it a nice seal and to keep any of that wax from chipping off. Once that dries, I'm going to take my drill and drill a hole right in the center of the larger box, clean all that debris up, and take some of these Dollar Tree lights, these battery-operated lights, and I'm going to feed those through the hole. And then I'm going to use some of Dollar Tree's double-sided tape. It's a super glue permanent mounting tape. And I'm going to put a piece of that on the battery pack. Now you want to make sure you put this on the side that you do not change the batteries from because you won't be able to change your batteries if you put it on the wrong side. And then you peel that other side of the sticky tape off and attach it to the back of the sign. Then I'm going to take some smaller pieces and place these on the bottom of our top part of the sign so that I'll be able to stick these lights down right there at the edge. So you just peel the little top tabs off and then I can go back in and add my lights right there where they'll kind of stick almost to the edge but not outside of the edge, and I can attach all of these down with this double-sided tape. And then I did have to add 2 more pieces of tape to get those last 2 lights in place. Then I pulled the excess wire back through the back of the sign and made sure everything's going to line up and look good before I attach the top part of the sign onto the bottom part. And I'm just going to attach that using some hot glue on each one of those wood cubes. Make sure I center that up, and then for the extra wire on the back, I'm just going to kind of fold that up and add a piece of that double-sided tape just to hold it in place so it doesn't feed back through the top part. Now I can attach my snowflake onto the top part of this sign, and I'm going to use some E6000 because that's going to give me a little bit of time to play around and make sure I have it positioned and centered. Now it was a little bit top heavy, so to add some weight in the back, I'm just using some of Dollar Tree's glass gems, or they may have come from Dollar General. I don't know, I've had them for a while. And I'm hot gluing those down in the back to give it some weight so it'll stand up nice and pretty. And I love how this sign turned out. It is so beautiful. You guys, let me know what you think of project number 6. I really hope you enjoyed today's video, and if you have a favorite, please let me know in the comment section down below. I always love to know which one is your favorite. Thank you guys so much. I truly do appreciate each and every one of you. Please take care, and I will see you guys next time.